Hi everyone, Teddy Baldassarre with TeddyBaldassarre.com, and in this video we're looking at a special piece from Omega with the Seamaster Diver 300 meter, No Time to Die. So if you're new to this channel, this is where we cover watches available for purchase on our website, TeddyBaldassarre.com, as an authorized dealer. So in this video, deep dive on this timepiece, final points of consideration at the end, but also throughout this video, if you're looking for more information or looking to buy this watch, check out the link in the description down below to the product page. Without further ado, let's jump into the video, take a closer look at this watch. The relationship between James Bond and Omega has been going on for nearly 30 years at the time of recording this video in late 2024, with 1995's GoldenEye being the kickoff of Omega's connection with arguably the industry's most celebrated cinematic watch-wearing character. Pierce Brosnan's Omega Seamaster Diver 300 meter reference 2541.80 helped with Omega's ascendancy, developing a newfound icon for the decades to come. When Craig took the role of Bond, first hitting the silver screen in 2006 with Casino Royale, it began the longest tenure of any Bond actor, spanning 5 blockbuster films, with each film getting at least one dedicated watch to it. In fact, Skyfall, Quantum of Solace, and Spectre all had 2 Omega pieces in the films. What I always found somewhat peculiar about the Craig Bond watches is that they often did not follow in the footsteps of the original Brosnan piece. Instead, Craig and Omega had a propensity to look elsewhere to sub-collections of Seamasters like the 300, Planet Ocean, and Aquaterra. In the lead up to what was supposed to be the 2020 cinematic release of Craig's last film as Bond, No Time to Die, Omega and Craig wanted to do something special as a send-off. To that point, Craig pieces were usually unassuming and only had subtle changes to core production products, leading to only the most well-known Omega collectors being able to decipher most of the Bond pieces. The No Time to Die Diver 300 meter edition was something entirely different, as I have heard that this was the most involved Craig ever was in helping to develop a watch for the film, with it being released to the public on December 4th, 2019. I remember this date vividly as I was in New York City for the reveal. It was also a big day for myself professionally, as outside of being one of the first in the world to see the watch, I was able to interview Reinold Eshelman, my first major interview with a brand CEO, that same day. I recall my first impression of the No Time to Die being favorable. I really liked the watch. It was easily the most distinctive Bond watch of Craig's tenure, with its warm tones, titanium construction, and a nonchalant coolness that permeated throughout. Omega quoted a short run for this watch at the time, which would only continue until the next Bond film. However, as a byproduct of the pandemic, the movie release was delayed, leading to a longer production than I believe Omega anticipated. As a result, this piece has become one of Omega's most discussed watches of this century. So 5 years later, let's take a look at what exactly you get with the Omega No Time to Die. So chances are many of you watching have tried on one of Omega's Diver 300 meter watches in stainless steel. It is Omega's best-selling sub-collection of watches in the US, and for good reason. Now take just about everything you know about how those watches wear in stainless steel and throw it out the window when thinking about this one, as it wears drastically different. The first point I want to bring up is the Grade 2 titanium construction. Titanium Grade 2 was chosen as a result of wanting the full sandblasted case effect. Given the covert desires of secret agents, polishing and having any reflective properties were ruled out for this design, and a lightweight material was also a priority. Although it will vary depending on the alloy, titanium is roughly 45% lighter than stainless steel. It is weird to say that you can forget you're even wearing this when you put it on, especially given the presence that the steel pieces have, but in this case, even more so if you pair the No Time to Die with its color-matched NATO. In terms of the dimension, there are also some minor changes to discuss. The 42mm diameter remains, the lug-to-lug measures 49mm, and the thickness is 12.8mm with my calipers. The thickness is the biggest difference compared to the steel versions, as the No Time to Die is more than half a millimeter thinner thanks to the case modifications. Further, the lug-to-lug is more compact as well, and wearing even smaller than the proposed length as a result of the bracelet. The 20mm spring bar is housed within a straight titanium sleeve, which sets a visual break for the eye, being seated higher up than the longest point of those lyre-style lugs. If you measure one of these end bars to the other, it comes in at 48.1mm, which is what I would say is a more accurate representation of how this fits on the wrist. When speaking specifically not to the length, but to the distance across the wrist, it is going to feel of its 42mm size on that side of things, given that it has that helium escape valve at 10 and a screw-down crown protected by guards at 3. One of the most memorable aspects of the product demonstration of the No Time to Die in 2019 was learning about how difficult this bracelet is to produce. For some reason, people subconsciously think that mesh bracelets are inferior in complexity to other designs, which I can only assume is because of the common misconception that heavy equals better. Keep in mind that each strand of titanium of this bracelet needs to be independently cut, coiled, and interlaced, which appears to be pressed mildly to have a uniform packing so there's no hair pulling and that it is comfortable. The 20mm titanium mesh bracelet tapers slightly down to around 18mm at the milled clasp with a signed dual button release. Bracelet can be sized without tools with a flip up tab that can align with one of the holes. In case you do have a smaller wrist, 6 inches and under, I would say, you will need to request a small strap version, which Omega does make, or you can opt for going for the color match NATO. For my wrist, which is around 6¼ inches, I'm on that last hole of the standard bracelet. So if you have a wrist size above that, you should be covered. In complement to the dark tool wash titanium case, the bezel insert is executed in aluminum in order to get this rich brown tone with complementing tan accents. Linear and dot indicators assist the numerals with managing elapsed time, being topped off with a lume pip at 12. Speaking of lume, the bezel is given a fair bit of illumination, leading to easy visibility in both light and dark, although it is going to fall behind the non-faux marker versions with its shine. In terms of its operation, the No Time to Die bezel rotates unidirectionally with 120 clicks. Since the bezel has these scallop notches, I find it a bit harder to rotate than other bezels on the market with grippier edging to get a steady rotation. Echoing the tones of the bezel, the dial seen through the anti-reflective coated sapphire crystal is also aluminum, and its color is a coffee brown with an almost tropic look. It features a mild grain finish with beige minute markings on the outer scale and bolded hash marks every 5 minutes. Circular and rectangular applied indices mark the hours and have metal surrounds matching the overall aesthetics. The skeletonized hands and hour markers contain superluminova and are artificially aged to a brownish sand color. The faux lume can be rather polarizing, but in this instance, I actually prefer it given the color of the dial and bezel. In my opinion, this watch just wouldn't look right with contemporary colored lume. There's no date window, so the dial keeps things beautifully symmetrical, and the dial text is balanced well despite having a lot of it. The Omega logo sits just above the red Seamaster text at 12, and the 3-line text at 6 sits just above the Ministry of Defense marking. If there's one area where Omega excels compared to other large production luxury names in watchmaking, it is their continued contributions to chronometry even in the 21st century. The coaxial escapement has been industrialized to scale, proving out Dr. George Daniels' original vision. 2015's master chronometer standard is now seeing industry adoption elsewhere, proving Omega was onto something. And more recently, SPY rate, although it's in its infancy, should be revolutionary for how calibers are regulated in the years to come. Before we discuss the hidden caliber behind the case back, we should explain what exactly is on this closed case back, because it does have some cool tie-ins to the Bond character. First, the screwed-in case back uses Omega's Naiad locking system, which helps the seal for water resistance and ensures the text is always precisely oriented vertically. Speaking to the text and the markings, the British Ministry of Defense marking is also here, followed by 0552 specifying use by British Navy personnel, with the following 9237697 calling out the military identifier for a dive watch. A indicates a screw-down crown, 007, well, I think you can figure that one out, and 62 refers to the year of the first Bond film. Behind the case back is one of Omega's most trusted calibers, the 8806. This automatic no-date single barrel movement is one of the most prevalent in the latest generation of coaxial calibers from Omega. It features a free-sprung balance, silicone balance spring with a rhodium-plated finish with waves of arabesque across the bridges and rotor. The caliber and ultimately the watch is master chronometer certified given the fully cased-up testing standards. It'll run between 0 to +5 seconds a day, being tested at 6 positions, offers 55 hours of power reserve, it hacks and hand winds, and will resist magnetic fields up to 15,000 Gauss. Given the modified escapement wheel and the pallet fork, the coaxial in Omega's watches runs at a rate of 3.5 Hertz or 25,200 vibrations per hour. And yes, these are basic entry-level movements from Omega, but there's a reason why Omega helps set a standard for a luxury automatic in its price range. So now some closing thoughts on the Omega No Time to Die. Some of the cons, then some of the pros. So I think two of the main cons that I would bring up here have to come down to, one, the Bond and the vintage looks of this piece are not going to be for everybody, which totally understandable. Subjective opinion is always going to be a thought process around looking at a watch. But I think the real challenge with this piece is just how it sits in the pricing spectrum of Omega. You are certainly paying a lot more for this version compared to the other standard Seamaster Diver 300 meter on a bracelet, which retails at $5,900 versus $10,000 here, and even the new mesh bracelet with a tighter weave is $6,500. What you're paying for here is the titanium case, the complexity of this bracelet construction, but there's no doubt you're also paying some Bond tax here. But then we shift into the pros for this piece, and This is a watch that both to me personally, but I think for many people has a lot of value, both sentimentally, but also in terms of what it represents for a whole era of Omega and James Bond, and also just Omega in general. I think this watch looks incredible, and it is my favorite looking of all of the Bond pieces. I also love the Skyfall and the Spectre, but this one feels the most distinct. I talked about how many of the previous Bond watches in the Craig tenure feel so close to what the standard production models are. This has its own look and feel, and I think that allows it to separate and be more memorable as a byproduct. The movement is fantastic. It delivers on many aspects that we're looking for. 300 meters of water resistance, of course, is great. Another thing I love about this Bond watch is that it doesn't feel like a Bond watch. It's not in your face. I find some of these movie-affiliated watches to be too overt and cartoonish, and it just feels more authentic to the character to have something more under the radar in its presentation. Also, titanium completely shifts what the narrative might be around the Diver 300, which is not a small watch by any means. I don't think it's an overly sized watch or it can't be wearable for many wrists out there, but if you're on the fence and want something that wears more compact, this is going to be your friend with that mesh bracelet, as well as how lightweight titanium is going to be. But the last point I want to bring up about the No Time to Die is ultimately what happened with its release. It's 2019, the movie was supposed to come out in early 2020, it gets delayed. Then the whole release around this watch that really was more around a movie release has now become a long-standing, long production watch affiliated with James Bond. The pandemic plus the Bond actor transition, which at the time of recording this video, there's no word on who the new Bond is going to be, has all contributed to a watch that nowadays has become one of the most important of Omega's century. Once the new Bond gets announced, this watch is going to ultimately go away. We don't know exactly when that will be, but I think that's all going to contribute to a watch that, just as it is now seen as a great representation of Omega in this current era, but will probably only be furthered as time goes on and these watches are no longer available. So in summary, is the No Time to Die the best value Diver 300 meter? No. But is it the most distinctive Bond watch maybe ever that Omega has produced? I think so. And I think in the future, it'll serve as a time capsule of this entire era for the Omega brand. All right, guys, that's all we have for this video. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Really do appreciate that. I don't just throw that out there at the end. It does help out the channel. Also, if you are in the market for this watch, we do have it available on TeddyBaldassarre.com. TeddyBaldassarre.com is an authorized dealer for over 30 brands. Every purchase from TeddyBaldassarre.com comes with a full factory warranty, quick and fast fulfillment, dedicated customer support. And also, if you have any questions about watches that we have on our website, reach out to us on live chat. We're on live chat around 18 hours a day. One of my team members can be in touch if you have any questions, and we'd love to be able to help you out with your future purchase. Also, any purchase from our website helps support the content and allowing us to keep doing what we're doing here, and we love what we do. But guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.